Speaking of the future, let's find out what NASA has planned and how much it's going to cost us taxpayers. With an update on that, we turn to the Center Square's Brett Rowland to talk about what kinds of new real estate potential there will be opening up on the moon. Brett, thanks for taking time with us. Just curious, what do you think taxes will be like once we do get on the moon?
That's a good question. NASA hasn't given word on that, and neither has the president or Congress. But I'm guessing that they'll follow us everywhere we go. So the big news this week was that NASA is going to scrap its Gateway program, which was essentially a replacement for the International Space Station, and they're going to go with a moon base instead. They're going to use the parts from that Gateway project, which ran into a bunch of snags, was already over budget and behind schedule. And they're going to essentially build a $20 million moon base over the next 7 years. Now that those costs could increase to about $30 billion over the next 10 years. But that's a little bit longer timeline and includes a number of different projects here. But so we've got the moon base, which will include some sort of nuclear reactor. And then there's also plans to bring a nuclear reactor to Mars and to launch a bunch of helicopters to explore the red planet further. So this is the biggest announcement we've seen from NASA since Trump said that he was going to go back to the moon. So this is a really big development for NASA.
Now, Brett, we could probably go in a totally different direction here and talk about whether or not we even went to the moon in the first place, but that's for a different type of program. Here we're talking about the taxpayer cost. Before we get into some more detail here, I do want to share some of what a NASA administrator had to say during the announcements this week about the importance, she says, is working with the private sector and having so-called public-private partnerships and how that could possibly save taxpayers. This is Dr. Nikki Fox, Associate Administrator for NASA Science.
Every day, I wake up with the goal of getting more science into space at a lower cost for our taxpayers. Today, we will dazzle you with some space mission updates and debut a lot of new science ideas and new opportunities for us all to collaborate together. Available resources, of course, can limit what NASA can do as a single entity. But if we are able to share risks, costs, and expertise, we can achieve greater results and improve return on investment for our taxpayers. In this way, we are building a more robust and resilient commercial space economy. We're interested in expanding our reach into public-private partnerships to allow NASA to address more priority science objectives.
So, Brett, does this mean that we're going to see the private sector possibly helping with that $20 billion in cost, or are taxpayers going to be the ones, footing the bill to then contract with some of these, private sector partners?
We're going to have to see. So the big announcement came this week. All of these plans are going out to bid right now. So we'll start getting those back in the coming years. This is going to take some time. As Jared Isaacman, the NASA administrator, said this week, it's not going to happen overnight, although things are going to start picking up real quick. So next year, we'll start to see more moon launches. We'll start to see more essentially launches into outer space, and then more prep to get these beyond the moon missions ready. So we'll see the moon base start to come online, and then after that Mars, and then we'll see how far NASA can go. But right now they've got a really strong administrator. They've got money for now, and they've got big plans for the future. So this is going to be something that really changes the way we view space exploration, and certainly the way Congress looks at space policy. Trump has made this a big push, and we'll see how far he can get.
$20 billion for a moon base, as you said, that could actually be a lot more, just depending on how these plans unfold. And when you get out into the great beyond of outer space, you can imagine all kinds of things could pop up, and cost overruns and change orders, and who knows. But that's just one portion of overall taxpayer funding expected for NASA. Your story that people can find at thecentersquare.com talks about a couple of other different operations, different projects that are going on, costing billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars. Break some of those other investments out.
So there's a couple of things that you mentioned. Are we going to have help from the private sector? Yes, the private sector certainly could help. The other, we're also looking at other countries for financial help and expertise help. And there's even a new essentially pipeline for NASA workers. So there's a lot of things moving here, and we'll have to see the final price tag at the end. It's not yet apparent yet. And as we know from NASA over the years, that once a project gets started and some of these challenges become more apparent, there may need to be design changes and other things, because a lot of these missions are going to be crewed. So we've got human lives involved. So you can expect costs to go up from here, but these are still just early estimates.
Of course, previous NASA programs really revolutionizing science and getting all kinds of instruments out in space with, I don't even know how many different views of the sun we have, for instance. It's pretty incredible, the different filters and just how far away these satellites can be. Of course, a lot of this taking money to perform these things. So clearly this is a big line item for taxpayers and a lot of interest for people who I would assume support these kind of endeavors, but I'm sure you're also going to find some criticism of people saying this is maybe not the best use of money with how much debt the United States has.
I think that the Trump administration would argue that these are essential programs for getting past the moon and getting further into space. But again, there's going to be so many challenges as this comes online that we'll have to see how it plays out.
One thing I saw when I was going through some of the material, Brett, was the different types of things, including, planetary protection systems and like satellites with laser beams on them to aim at asteroids to ensure that they don't turn into a Hollywood movie here. I mean, what else are we looking at with NASA?
There's a lot coming online. So this is they're just starting to roll out the vehicles that they'll put up there and some of the equipment. They've been preparing for crewed launches, which we could start to see later this year and into next year. So this is really an exciting time for NASA, and a lot is happening. The other things that we're going to have on the moon, you can expect some advanced communication systems and sort of essentially laying the foundation for these beyond the moon missions that'll come next.
Another question for you, Brett. Which fast food restaurant do you think first will be raising their flag on the moon?
That's a great question. I think that they're going to have to see larger populations and larger workforce on the moon before they invest.
Oh, I'm sure there's going to be some longtime contractors there as well who've been involved in a lot of different aspects of not just NASA, but even operations all across the globe. So this is actually, it's pretty exciting. It's a fun topic, but the taxpayers are going to be footing the bill for a substantial amount of this. But you got to imagine too, Brett, this is also going to spur on some incredible scientific discoveries. It's going to spur on potentially new types of economies. So I can see that the private sector is probably chomping at the bit to get involved in this.
I'm sure of it. And I bet that those RFPs and the RFIs that NASA sent out this week looking for just early information on how to get this off the ground, I bet there's a lot of work going on with those as we speak, and we'll get to see some of that private and public investment coming soon. Well,
looking forward to you pouring through those documents as we see all of this starting to come together in the years ahead, but pretty remarkable. $20 billion moon base being announced this week by NASA. Brett Rowland, the Center Square staff reporter, greatly appreciate your time. We'll be checking in with him again in the near future.